we would be able to baptize more people. And I don't think so. I still believe that, and again, the numbers bear it out, that we are still the best people to work for African Americans, and Caucasians are still the best people to work with Caucasians. As long as we live in the current environment, that's going to be true. That's number one. Number two, you can't just wave a magic wand and say, because again, the discussion in the United States, I'll go back to what I said earlier. I'm ready to wave that magic wand so long as it's not just regional conferences that disappear.
Okay, see, this is what I'm trying to ask. All right, and I'm gonna make it short. During segregation, we had handed down textbooks. That's the way I feel with some of our churches here. Our churches feel like it's not on par as far as other churches when it comes to the educational part of it, to meet our budgets and things, our curriculum for our children. And yes, they're going to need those things are truly important to parents with young children. We don't have church school over here. So why didn't they just come to Pensacola and build a church school where everybody can attend? Most of the people leave and go over their church school because they can get a lower price. That doesn't make sense when we are Adventists. Why are we not paying the same price?
Okay.
It should be just Adventist price and non-Adventist price.
Okay, here's the reason.
Those are things like that
Here's the reason why here's the reason why you don't do that. Because if you go over, and I don't know the name of the church school. University Park. Okay. I have children. I want them to be in church school because I did. My children only went to church school. If I lived here, they would have to go to University Park. I would expect to pay more until Jordan Street starts putting money into their school.
Okay, why we don't just have a church school called Adventist school?
Because, okay, you at the point that you and university decide to make that happen, you can make that happen. If Jordan Street wants to subsidize, you got to write.
You're not understanding what I'm saying.
No, I do.
I'm not. Well, we have too many separate things.
No,
to be an Adventist.
You can, but I'm saying you can fix that tomorrow. And the way you fix it is you say, we want to be a part of the constituency that runs university, but here's what we'll pay in order to do that.
Okay,
that's where it breaks.
I'm not talking about that. I don't want the church school just to be university. I want a school.
But you can't do that because they should.
Adventist school.
Okay.
And we all contribute, and it's our school.
But what I'm saying is you can do that tomorrow. You can say, get rid of university name and call it whatever you want to. But you can't do that without writing a check. And that's where it breaks down. Okay? Church school is extremely expensive. Right? So I would guess that I know when I was a pastor 30 years ago, it was costing us $50,000 a year. Right? So is Jordan Street ready to make that kind of commitment? Number one. And see, this is the problem when we only look at one side of the equation. What we're saying, it sounds wonderful to have one school, but that means the regional conference schools, churches have to do what regional conferences have been reluctant to do, and that is make a large financial commitment to church school. You could fix, if you have people out of your church who are going over to university to get the lower price, you can fix that simply by saying, we will make up the difference between what you would pay as a member here and what you would pay as a member there. All these problems are fixable, but they're not fixable without people willing to make a sacrifice. The same thing is true over there. I remember being a pastor in a church in South Central where we tried to join another another South Central school. They didn't want to do it because they didn't want to give up control. Okay, so all these until we're willing to have more than surface conversations, then we're not going to fix anything. There's some part of what I'm trying to do is say, look, under the surface, there's some serious problems that we need to talk about. And those problems go beyond us saying, let's all come together. There's a reason why we haven't come together. And we're not going to get to that reason until we address some things. Let me go to you all know. Then I got to go. Miss your flight. I know, yes. No, you have to smoke. So go ahead. Well, okay, I need you to make it quick. Okay, yes.
No, I was just wondering, to me, the bottom line is, we as Seventh-day Adventists, we're supposed to be God, Christians, and we're supposed to be doing all this here. Is a lot of this because maybe we don't come together with other people and pray for the power of the Holy Spirit? Is it because of lack of true conversion?
I think some of that is it. I think some of that is it. But again, the mistake is to assume that's all that there is. The fact of the matter is, there is nothing wrong with people saying, culturally, this is my preferred worship style. Okay? Today, for example, you all were very kind about the sermons. We appreciate the sermon. I've preached in majority culture churches, and I have to preach different. Have to. Okay? Could not preach that same sermon the same way at University Park. Could not. I've preached in that setting. And you know what? I've had said to me more than once, why are you talking so loud? We're not deaf. We can tone it down. Okay? Now, there's nothing.
Why did you take so long?
I hope I didn't take it.
No. Hey, you went past 12 o'clock.
Okay.
So you ain't got to 12 o'clock.
I didn't get up to 12. Okay. So there's nothing wrong. See, we think that's a problem. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm more comfortable with you can sing those songs that you sung. And there's nothing wrong with somebody saying, hey, I'm not comfortable with that. What's wrong is when I try to force my preferences on you and say there's something wrong with you because you're not like me. So we got to face the fact that we have become accustomed to two very different worship styles. And we can talk and we can make speeches all we want. That's not going to change. Okay? So then it becomes, and I'll make this point, then we'll jump on my bike. Okay. It becomes, I'm old Advent, so I don't play cards. Okay? So I'll use an Uno example. Right? We play Uno is safe. Okay. When you play Uno, right? You can, if you play Uno, right? If you get the draw twos and the draw fours, and you go, bam, you just kill them, bam, bam. But what happens when your hand is bad? You can't just throw your hand in. You got to make the best of what you got. That's mission-wise, we got to make the best of what we've got. University Park is never, ever, ever going to accept the worship style of Jordan Street. Not happening. Not happening ever. So, what do you do about that? Do you guilt trip people and say, oh, no, y'all need to be together? Or do you say, you're welcome to come here. We'd love to have you here. And the stuff we can do together, we should do together. Okay? But if you want the pastor to talk like this, and you want to get out at 12 o'clock, and you want the choir to sing differently, then then we're okay with that. But that's not what we're going to do here. Okay. That's the hand, and that's the hand that we've played for the last 70 years. And we've actually done pretty well with it. Okay? Now, can we do better? That's why we have this conversation. How can we do it better? Right? But I do think, until the discussion, until when I go, listen to me, I'm going to go. Until I go to a state conference church and they say, you know what we going to do is we shutting down and we coming to Jordan Street. Until we start having conversations like that, nothing's going to change. It's just not. And we need to accept that and play the best card that we can, which we've been doing. Okay? I don't like having to explain to my white non-Adventist friends why we have what we have. The problem is we only have that discussion without realizing your non-Adventist friends have the same problem. Unless your non-Adventist friends who are white are not going to a majority black church. Not happening. Not happening. So when they brag about diversity, understand what they're bragging about. They're bragging about a multiculturalism where the multis have become one culture. Now, that's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing, if that's good for them, there's nothing wrong with that. But what we can't do is allow ourselves to be made to feel badly about the fact that we've chosen to go another way for the sake of mission. Because again, I want to point to the fact that with all the disadvantages and all the lack of resources and all that kind of stuff, the fact of the matter is we are still growing at a rate ahead of our Caucasian brethren who are largely being propped up by minorities coming to. That's
maybe in the back.
Yes. So for the sake of mission and for the sake of me catching my plane. Yes. Yeah.
Been there that week. So you had to say.
Okay.
This is great on church school, and I don't know how it's working now in Tallahassee. The three churches came together and compromised. One church said we have the funds. Another church said we have the space, and the third church said something, but they were able to come to a decision.
And remember, I said where we can come together, we should. Here's going to be the tricky part, though, is that alliance going to hold over time when the majority becomes minority? That's the problem. That's the problem. Okay? And historically, that hasn't happened. Now, I hope it does happen with it. Okay? But it hasn't happened. And we need, instead of us blaming us, we have to understand that there's been more of a willingness to integrate on this side than there's been on the other. All right, listen, thank you. Thoroughly enjoyed it. As much as I would love to stay in Pensacola and enjoy all this new weather, that's not the job I have. So unless I plan to live here, I gotta make the plan. God bless.
A loaded baked potato, hot. You didn't eat it?
You still at 6. Put us first. Drew. Hey, you're not going. Huh? No, I'm not. I'm going to the bathroom.
I'm sorry, let me hold this for you then.
Yeah.
That's good.
Kid cut.
That's because they'll be waiting.
I just ran the Wayne home.